Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
We're going to be walking you through all of the features and the stats for this Zendure SuperBase V. And then we're going to give you our real world use cases to see if this is right for what you're really going to be using it for.
Or maybe you didn't even realize the things that the SuperBase V can do.
Yeah, let's get right into it next on Now Let's Review. All right, so what you're looking at here is actually the satellite battery. There's actually the main battery that you're seeing here.
And the reason that we don't have it up on the table is because it weighs 130 pounds.
This weighs 101 pounds. So to save our backs, we just put this one up here. So let's talk about what this thing can do. We're talking about 6,438 watt hours of energy stored in each of the batteries. Even though there's a different size, this still stores the same amount of energy.
And what's interesting is that these units can stack on top of each other, or they can also stack on top of the base unit.
Yeah, so you can stack up to 4 of these on top of the base unit, giving you a total of 32 kilowatt hours of energy. And if you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, that's about a third of the size of a Tesla Model S battery pack. A lot of juice.
A lot of power.
Now, you might be saying, well, guys, it's so heavy, how am I going to get it around? Well, the base unit has these nifty wheels on it. And not only are they just regular wheels, they are powered.
That's right. They basically took wheels that you'd normally see on like a hoverboard, and they strapped them onto the unit. And the cool part is when you start to drag it, the wheels are going to help you out.
Yep.
So it can help, going up inclines. It can help just rolling it around. Because again, the base with this on top of it is going to be 236 pounds.
Right.
And that is a lot of weight to be dragging around.
That's like trying to drag your Uncle Steve in the big Barcalounger around your house. So it's smart that they did that. And you can set the speed for that in the app, which is really cool.
You can even control it like it's a little RC car. Drive it around your house. I don't know why you want to drive a 200+ pound car around your house remotely, but you can do it. So that is really nice if you're not terribly strong and you don't want to be hefting things around.
And of course, it's got this cool little handle that you can put in and out to help you move it around. It's like luggage. So the batteries in here are LFP, lithium ferrous phosphate. And these are the same batteries that are in a lot of Teslas now. They are a little bit less energy dense, but they're a lot safer, and I like that.
So this means that if this were to get crushed or there was a fire,
or if you were to shoot a gun into it. I mean, look at this footage here. You can, they're so safe that you can basically pierce them and they shouldn't explode.
And that is a far cry from normal lithium-ion batteries, which aren't too keen on getting stabbed. They tend to explode when that happens.
Right.
So that's kind of a nice thing, especially since you're gonna have 6.4 kilowatt hours per battery pack.
Yeah, and they might be in your living room. All right, so first up, we're going to show you the display here. It shows you lots of cool things, temperature warnings, how much it's drawing. It even tells you how much time left you have on the battery, which is really nice, because if you plugged a little fridge into this, you might be like, oh no, we only have 5 more hours of energy. It lets you plan ahead. Really cool.
Next on the front are the outputs. As you can see, you've got your regular looking wall outlets, so you can plug in sort of your normal, everyday around the house stuff into normal, everyday looking plugs.
But what I want to point out is you can use all of the outputs at once if you want to. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I can only plug in this, but I can't plug in that. Let's walk through what all the outputs are. So first up, you got 2 USB-A ports.
And so that's, for plugging in your phone and stuff like that. Then there are 4 USB-C ports. Some are the high power 100 watt versions, so that can be used to kind of charge your laptop if you have a laptop that can take that. And the other 2 are still really fast chargers for charging phones.
Next up, you got 4 120 volt AC outlets, so plenty of outlets on there. Then you've got a 120 volt 30 amp TT30 outlet, so even more juice that you can draw from that. Next up is a 240 volt, but it's only 16 amps. So I want that to be clear, 16, not 60. And so it's great that you have 220, but I am surprised that that's all you can pull from it.
Well, you gotta keep in mind that the SuperBase V was supposed to work all by itself, and that all the satellite batteries are doing is giving it more capacity, not necessarily more power. And so I think that's the reason why you can't draw a crazy amount of power from it, just because if they put the ports on it, it would have to work no matter what.
Then you've got some very unique connectors here for outputs. You've got an Anderson output, so that's like a general case that you could use for all sorts of things. You could make up your own Anderson connector. And that is a 12 volt, 30 amp output. Next up, you've got a very ubiquitous 12 volt cigarette lighter. You've seen those in all your cars and stuff, and many things use those. And that is for 10 amps.
Next, you've got 2 DC 5.5 12 volt barrel connectors, and lots of other stuff uses this as well. And these are 12 volts, 3 amps.
And so again, you can use all of these at the same time if you want to, so you could be pulling 7,600 watts at the same time. I can't think of any other product I've seen yet that can do that.
Maybe the Ford F-150 Lightning.
Okay,
But that's a vehicle, not a battery storage system.
All right, but taking power out is great, but you gotta fill it up again, so how do you do that?
There are a number of different ways, and you can do all of them at the same time as well. Not that you necessarily would, but I guess it's technically possible. So the first and most ubiquitous way is to simply plug it into the wall. It comes with a cable. You plug it in just like you would a computer.
Right, and that's gonna take a number of hours, depending on how depleted the battery is. But if you wanted to, you could drive this to an EV charger, or maybe have one at your house, and using this, you could plug in a level 2 charger and get 3.6 kilowatts of charging speed, which means in about 2 hours, you would have this full.
Now the SuperBase V comes with a Type 2 electric car charger, and that is the European version of the port that we're all familiar with. But they do sell separately an adapter, which goes to a standard J1772 plug, which if you drive an EV in the United States, you're gonna be very familiar with.
Okay, so just to be clear, with this kit, you can plug this into here and output to your car. You can also get power into it. So it's confusing. You can get power in through the J1772 with the adapter, or you could also plug it into your car and charge your car. So I just want to point out a use case I've seen on the internet. Some people are saying you could put this in your trunk or your back of your pickup truck, like your Ford F-150 Lightning, and you could charge your car from this. You technically could. It would give you, like a Model 3, just to give you some idea, with the base unit, you'd get about 30 miles of range. That's not bad, but it means that you would have had to have thought ahead and brought that with you, putting all that extra weight, like an extra person of weight in your car. I guess if there's some use case for that, you could do it, but I don't think that's what this was designed for. To me, the best way to charge this thing is for free.
And of course we mean from the sun.
So if you've got some solar panels lying around, you can plug them right in, or Zendure does sell a 400-watt solar panel along with the many other solar panels. This thing is great. It unfolds. We're showing it here, and you can plug that in, and with 400 watts in, yeah, it's going to still take a while to charge, but you're getting all that energy for free from the sun. And what's really great is that there's all these different adapters that come with it, so you can plug into a cigarette lighter, you can plug into the wall, and you can plug into solar.
Yeah, this one is really cool. You can plug into basically any solar system you want. And you can read the technical specs on, what configuration the solar should be in, but that is a really cool option.
All right, so let's talk about price. There's all different prices going on with different sales, but what I just saw on the Zendure website was that the SuperBase V is selling for $31.99. And if you're wondering, how does this compare to a Tesla Powerwall? Well, we did the math for you. A Tesla Powerwall costs about $11,500, and you get 13.5 kilowatt hours for that, giving you a price of about $852 per kilowatt hour. Let's do the math for this Zendure SuperBase V.
$3,200 for 6.4 kilowatt hours of electricity puts us at almost exactly $500 per kilowatt hour.
So it's cheaper per kilowatt hour.
Yes, but you have to keep in mind what the cost of the Powerwall is actually giving you. And the Powerwall can back up your house.
Why can't this back up your house?
Here's where things start to get a little bit tricky when it comes to Zendure.
Okay, because you could just put this with the other one and then you're basically the size of a Tesla Powerwall. So I don't understand, if this is cheaper, why wouldn't I just immediately go for this?
Again, when I say that a Tesla Powerwall can back up your house, I mean that you can lose electricity and instantly it will kick in, providing regular power through the regular wires in your house. You don't have to go run any extension cords.
Okay,
it just works.
Hang on though. Zendure sells the Zendure Smart Home Panel. So doesn't that do what a Powerwall does?
No, it actually, you look at it and you'd think, oh good, this will back up my house. I've actually taken a look at the wiring diagram and no, it doesn't.
All right, well, it's $11.99. Why would I spend $1,200 for something that doesn't give me any added functionality?
I don't know.
All right, well, I think I do know. I think it's because it allows you to keep this plugged into the grid so it keeps charging it even when you're not charging it.
But that's what a extension cord does. That's what plugging this into the wall does.
So it's a glorified extension cord.
I really don't, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I've done a little bit of looking into it and it really doesn't look like it directly backs up your house. Now, with that being said, you could basically run either an extension cord or have a sub panel in your house that gets powered directly from this, but it would be a parallel system to your regular power system. And you'd be able to, you know, plug in refrigerators and stuff to it in the case of an outage, but it's not going to just work like a Powerwall does.
Yeah, and you'd have to talk to an electrician and your local inspectors about what the code says about doing that, because yeah, you can't have it plugged into the grid, because then it would be powering the grid in case of an outage and it could electrocute someone.
Basically, in order to have an inverter that can backfeed the grid, or basically a shutoff that can shut off your house to the grid and then have your house be running off grid, costs a little bit more money than what they're charging for that smart home panel.
Right. So I want to talk about some cons here. The first is that, yeah, I don't think you can just magically run your whole house off of this battery. It's a little bit misleading to think that you can, but it may be possible for an electrician to hook up some kind of sub panel, or, I mean, yes, you can plug in a fridge and some lights and, you know, maybe a little heater so that if the power goes out, and we'll talk about more of that in a second. Second con for me is that it is so heavy, 130 pounds. It's hard to picture that until you really lift it, but it means that you have to have two strong people lifting this. You're not going to lift it yourself without throwing your back out unless you're a weightlifter.
And I'm sorry, the wheels on it, while they're great for flat surfaces, they're not really going to do too well on gravel, grass, soil, door thresholds. Like, if you can't like rollerblade over it, you're gonna have a hard time getting the SuperBase V to roll over it as well. And if you have a couple of these stacked on top, that means you're gonna have to take all 100 pounds of each of these off, move the thing, then it's not something that's extremely mobile.
Right.
Now, the last con I have to point out is the plastics, and I do mean literally the plastic enclosure. The injection molding has a lot of defects. And I think what Zendure does was they make a lot of much smaller versions of this where it's a small battery pack. And if you take your knowledge of injection molding pieces and you scale it up, but you don't learn what that means in terms of molding, you're gonna end up with these meld lines right here. You're gonna get some blush over here.
Okay, Jesse, but you were a plastics engineer. I get it. You do this a lot. Who cares?
Strength. The strength of this enclosure is not so good. You may notice down here, we have a bit of a break, and that break was right along a meld line. That's basically when they're pumping plastic into the mold of this shape. The plastic kind of gets separated and then it comes back together and it doesn't necessarily fuse together. It's hard to make big plastic pieces like this, and Zendure was clearly in a rush. They probably put their regular plastics team, who were used to making like small pocket-sized batteries, and then you have to scale it up to this size. I think that this is something that they're probably gonna iron out in the future, but until you start to see their marketing show no defects like this, I'm a little bit worried about the enclosure of it being structurally sound.
So you have to be super careful with it.
Yeah, and that's where it's a little scary, because this weight, if you put it in, say, your trunk, and it gets crunched over to one side, I'm worried about this plastic breaking.
What I do like, though, is that you can get this case, which goes over it and can protect it. So that's a nice feature that you might want to think about getting. So let's go to the pros. This system, I think, would be great for certain kinds of camping, whether it's RV camping or trailer camping, or even if you have a cabin in the woods that's not normally powered. This is a lot of juice. It's going to be able to take care of, I think, most use cases for, a weekend at a time or more, especially since you can charge it with your solar panels. And if you happen to want to, you could drive it to an EV charger near your campsite, charge it up very quickly, and have more juice. And that leads me into my second pro. We all know that there's more hurricanes and floods and blackouts happening around the world, and it's really nice to feel like you have power in your house in case that happens for fridges, heaters, lights, laptops, phones, right? This is a great solution for that. And what's nice about this is if you have an extended blackout, let's say multiple days like what happened in Texas or happens in New England a lot, you could, again, throw this in your trunk, would be a little tricky, and then drive it to an EV charger, charge up in an hour or two, bring it back and have more juice for your house.
And while it's not necessarily convenient, in an emergency, having a mobile power source, one that isn't bolted to the side of your house and lined in with all of the wires in your house, means that this is infinitely movable and scalable. All you need are a couple extension cords and you can get a house into a fairly livable state.
And that, to your point, if grandma needs help at her house, you could bring it to her house.
Right. I'm not saying that you're going to love lifting 135 pounds into your vehicle,
but it's totally doable if you need to do it.
If you can do that, and if that's going to save the day, that's kind of a really cool thing that we've never had access to before, and now we do.
So I'm a licensed building contractor and I want to talk about work sites. There's a lot of times at the beginning of a job especially where there's no power at the work site. This could be a great solution to getting those first few days or weeks up and running without having to worry about generators or super extension cords. Bring it over to your work site, plug in your tools, and in fact, even if you got some 220 tools, you can run that. Another cool thing is you could make anywhere your work site. So if you want to go out into the woods and use your electric chainsaw, now you can.
Another thing is, let's say that you only have a single electric line coming out. It's only 110, 15 amps. That means that you can't draw that much power off of that one line. Pop the battery at the end of that, and it's kind of like dribbling water into a cup, and then when you need to drink, you go glop, and you put it back, and you fill it right back up again. So, if I'm using a tool that's gonna draw more than 15 amps, well, no problem, the SuperBase V has me covered.
Yeah.
Whereas that line would have just conked out, and I would be stuck there holding a powerless power tool.
Overall, I was really impressed. There's a lot of cool features on this. It is a pricey thing. It's not the kind of thing you buy as a toy. It's something that you buy because you need it to fit a real world use case. And I hope the ones that we just walked through with you will help you decide how this works. I really love that it's scalable so that you don't have to buy more juice than you need or less than you need. And you can add these satellite batteries as you learn that you need them.
Overall, I love that this is a plug and play solution. It works with solar. It's not proprietary solar. You can just pop it onto a system if you know what you're doing. And I think that that is so cool, because if you wanted to do this the old-fashioned way, you almost need to be an engineer to figure it out. This is about as simple as it gets.
So if you're interested, check out our affiliate code down below and go see what Zendure has to offer. They're a really reputable company, which is why I like them. Whenever we've talked to them about questions that we had, they've had really good customer service. That to me is really important when you're making a big purchase. If you have any questions, please leave your comments down below. We'll try and get those answered for you. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so we can keep bringing you cool products like this. We'll see you next time. Now let's review.